okay, not very hard or not very easy.
Okay, good. So we're going to talk about climate change. What do you know about terms like climate change, greenhouse gases, or the greenhouse effect, or global warming? What do you know about these terms?
I know they're mainly caused by people, like carbon dioxide, and they're causing the ice are turning into water, and soon I think some country will be flooded.
Okay. And what is causing this change in climate?
People are producing a lot of things, and these things cause uh, those those gas called greenhouse gas, and that makes the world uh, turn turn warmer.
Okay, it's making the world a bit warmer, right?
Yeah.
So, according to Bill Gates, this whole article is supposed to be a speech. It's a speech that he made, and he goes on and talks about climate change and all that. So, I'm showing you the first page of what he has said, and he has one. He's trying to correct a wrong notion in the first part of his speech. He says that some people think of climate change in a certain way, but some of those ideas are not right, are not exactly accurate. So, what did he say about this matter?
Mm,
And so I showed you the page so that you can quickly scan for your answer. If you don't know your answer, you can scan the page and identify which paragraph you can take your hint from. So he said most people think of climate change in a certain way. What is that thing that most people think about?
they they think of solar panels and wind turbines.
Why do they? And do you have a general term to describe those things?
Um, uh,
You have one vocabulary word that can cover things like wind turbines, solar panels, and similar types of energy, uh, sources of energy. So, would that vocabulary word be? Oh, what happened? My page disappeared. You can look at your copy while we're waiting for the page to load. Do you have solar power in China?
yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what do you call energy that comes from the wind, the the water,
Mm,
hydropower, the sun? Do you have a general term for them?
I think natural resources.
Natural resources, yeah. And you can find the term in the first paragraph of your article. Can you see if you can find it?
Renewables.
Yes, renewables. Have you heard of it before?
Yeah.
what is the exact term? Renewable is just part of it. So usually they call it what?
Energy?
Renewable energy, right? So in a nutshell, renewable energy comes from sources that don't run out, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't run out. What would be the other side of renewable energy? Another type of energy that people like Bill Gates don't recommend we use.
Non-renewable
Mm-mm.
energy,
Non-renewables like what?
like fuel.
Fuel.
Yeah,
Do you know what fuel is?
things people use to make their cars move.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Things that people use to make their cars run. It's like food for our machines, right? So
Yeah.
we need fuel. So is fuel good or bad?
Mm,
For example, your car, what does your car run on?
it runs on oil and
Mm-hmm. It runs on
gas.
oil, right? So do you think fuel is it good or bad?
Well, it's good for us.
Yeah, basically it's good. It's the thing that makes us makes us active, makes us move. What is the fuel for the body?
It's our food.
Yeah, it's our food, right? It's anything that makes us run, it makes us go. So fuel in general is not really bad for us, and it's not exactly the opposite of renewable energy. So it's a certain type of fuel that is opposed to renewable energy. What would it be? It's also in your article. You don't have to go too far. It's just in the first page, I think.
Um, uh, uh, Decarbonize.
Hmm, no. Do you see the word fossil fuels? Do you see the word fossils?
No, not in the first page.
Not in the first page.
No.
Okay, I'm trying to open the page again. So the word is FOSSIL, fossils, fossil fuels. So these are the fuels that we get from under the ground. And basically, it's more or less the oil that we use, the oil that is converted into the different kinds of fuel that we need to run our cars, whether it's gasoline or diesel, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so how do they differ? How are they different from, from renewables? How are fossil fuels different from renewable energy?
They can only use for one time,
Mm-hmm. And where do they get it?
and
Yeah, go ahead.
I think they um they would do harm to the environment.
They would do harm. Okay. All right. Do you see the page now? I think it disappeared for a minute, but now it's back, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you see this? this term, renewables?
Yeah.
All right, so that's renewable energy. And we're contrasting it to fossil fuels, which are energy sources that we get from under the ground, and they are created from fossils. So what about this term, fossils? What do you think it means?
The bones of the dead animals.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So it's from organic matter that decayed a long, long time ago. They've been layered for many, many years, and in the end, they become the material for the fuel that we use, right?
Yeah.
But the problem is, the more we mine, the more we try to mine them from the ground or from under the sea or wherever we get them, they will they will easily be depleted. They will be depleted. Do you know this word, depleted or depletion? Have you heard it before?
No.
Depleted means once you get them, they become less and less. So if you get the fossil fuels from the earth, the amount will become lesser than before until there's not enough. There's not enough to use. And this is important because it takes years to create fossil fuels. They come from dead matter. They come from dead things that pile up. And so once they're gone, we we won't have any fuel to make things run. But the thing is, if you compare fossil fuels to renewable energy, for example, if you take the energy from the sun, do you think the sun is going to run out?
No.
No, it's not, right? It's just going to be there. So it's something that you can sustain. Sustain meaning you can keep it long term without it becoming zero, even if you use as much as you want. So, so renewable energy is considered clean energy. We have a few examples, like the energy produced by the wind. Have you seen a wind turbine before?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do they produce? How does the wind use it to make energy for us?
Um, the wind blows and then it turns, I think,
Mm-hmm.
and then it makes the machine move
Mm-hmm.
and it stores electricity to a battery.
Very good. Yes. So we have solar power, which works in almost the same way. Can you think of any other examples?
They people use water to make the people use dams to make the water
Mm-hmm.
run for the machines.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. And also, uh, yeah, you're right. That's we call that hydroelectric power, right? So how does fossil fuel make the climate warm? How does it contribute to making the earth warmer?
I think when machines use this fossil fuel, they would create greenhouse gas like carbon dioxide, and the gas
Mm-hmm.
makes the world warmer.
Good. Yes. Exactly. Right. So, so what do the proponents of renewable energy want us to do then? What is the main idea? The what is their call to action? What is their goal in relation to renewable energy and fossil fuels, according to this article?
Um, I think the relationship is Bill Gates thinks we should use more renewable energy instead of
Mm-hmm.
using the fossil fuels.
Okay. So naturally, they want us to use more renewable energy, right? But
Yeah.
there will be times when when we just cannot access renewable energy. When does this happen? When does this situation happen?
Mm, is when I think that's mainly when we are transporting things.
Transporting things? Can
Yeah.
you give me the sentence or the paragraph that says that?
Low emission cars are great, but cars account for a little less than half of the transportation related emissions today, and that share will shrink in the future. More emissions come from airplanes, cargo ships, and trucks. Right now, we don't have practical zero carbon options for any of these.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yes. All right. So, okay, the paragraph that you read is more about uh, gas emissions, greenhouse gas emissions. But uh, let's try to think to a situation where you cannot access any kind of renewable energy, like you can't access solar power, you can't access hydropower, or you can't access the power from the wind. When does those things happen? Because you know the sun will always be there. So why don't some countries just use the sun then? Because it's expensive to keep buying or importing fossil fuels from the oil producing countries. There are some
Uh,
countries that cannot produce it, and so it you have to spend for it, right?
yeah.
So yeah, so why how come they don't just use solar power the whole year round since it's
Uh,
free?
it can't be sunny every day,
Yes, good. It can't be sunny every day. Anything else?
and it would be a bit expensive to make the machines to get the solar power.
Okay, good. Yes. Yeah, and you're right. And it says here in this article, see, there will be long periods of cloudy weather. And then at nighttime, you can't access the sun in the nighttime, right?
Yeah.
And there will be windless days. There will be days when there will be absolutely no wind blowing, or there will be times when the sea or the water won't produce any kind of strong current. So for those in those during those periods that we can't use renewable energy, what are we going to do?
Then we have to use the fossil fuel.
Right, we need to use the fossil fuels. We need backup sources. See, do you see this term, backup source? What is a backup source?
The source we store, or we it's another kind
Mm-hmm.
use when we cannot use the ones we want to use.
Right, it's the replacement for to be used in exchange for the ones that we actually can't access. So according to Bill Gates, what do we need to do with our backup sources?
Um, I
So I've given you the page to make it easy for you to find the answer.
okay.
You can find it somewhere here, the page that I've opened.
Maybe he thinks we still need more breakthroughs.
Yeah, we need more breakthroughs. What is a breakthrough though?
Like more changes.
More changes. So it's more of developing new technology
Okay.
because we have our resources, but we need to find a way to use them properly. And he says that we need to make our backup sources be zero carbon. So it means whatever source that we use to replace the renewable energy, those replacements should not produce carbon dioxide. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Do you get it? So
Yeah.
we have renewable energy that is already clean, and sometimes when we can't use it, we need to use a backup source that is also clean energy. So you need to create a new technology that will clean up the backup source, whether it's using fossil fuels or what or any other thing. You know, I read an article about a scientist. My page keeps disappearing. This never happened before. I
Mm-hmm.
read a story about a scientist who actually found a way to convert water, seawater, I think, into car fuel. Did you hear about that?
No.
No. So it's maybe you might be able to find it over the internet, and it's something that actually happened. But they tried to hinder his progress from making this technology of using water as fuel. They tried to hinder him from making it accessible to the public. So if this story was true, I'm going to look for that article though. If this story is true, why do you think would anyone try to stop people from developing water into a kind of fuel? Why would they do that?
Maybe maybe those people who mine the fuse won't like that. They would probably lose their jobs.
Yes, you're absolutely right. So it's the what do you call those people who make
Miner?
money out of fossil fuels?
Um,
What would you call them?
um,
It's a kind of organization, right? It's not
yeah.
just one person. It's a group, and they
Mm,
are oil companies, right?
yeah.
Can you give me an example of an oil company?
Well, I don't know any.
Do you have any in China? Like for
Uh,
example, when you go to a petrol or a gasoline station, when you drive through, you have to gas up your car, right?
yeah.
Have you ever noticed what some of their names are?
Yeah, like I only know them in Chinese, so I suppose in English it should be Chinese fossil, like things like that.
Chinese oil, China oil, maybe.
Yeah.
Uh, do you have any Western oil companies in China? Are they popular there?
No, not popular.
I see. Okay. All right. So these companies wouldn't want the development other sources of energy to progress that quickly, because then they would lose their business. So that's part of the problem in the story of climate change and in the quest of developing renewable energy. So, okay, so according to Bill Gates, he said there is a wrong idea about climate change, about renewable energy and electricity. What is that wrong idea?
That wrong idea is mm,
Yes. Okay, here. So I've opened the page for you to help you out. Do you see anything here that he's talking about?
he's talking about
He's trying to correct one wrong idea.
um he tries to make people think um uh we they
Hmm.
maybe he doesn't want people to think only using a little bit of renewable energy is enough.
Hmm.
He
Yes. Yes, continue.
he wants people to stop relying on fossil fuels.
Okay. Yes. He wants us to develop more renewable energy. So he says this part. This is the thing that he's trying to correct. I wish that were enough to solve the problem. Unfortunately, it isn't. What is he talking about?
He's talking about renewable energy.
Yeah, and what's wrong with it?
Um, we um,
He says, I wish there were enough to solve the problem, but it's not. So he says there is a wrong idea that people have.
yeah.
Do you see it now or not yet?
Mm, everyone who cares about climate change should help we continue to decarbonize the way we generate electricity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
We,
do you need help?
yeah,
So he says that cleaning up the energy, our sources of electricity, he says he wants us to decarbonize electricity, meaning he wants us to use more renewable energy, right? That's the goal. But he says this is not the main problem. This the problem of energy, renewable energy is just 25% of the problem. Do you understand what he's trying to say?
Maybe I think the renewable energy are far not enough.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yes.
we need more energy um, to do all the work we do nowadays.
Mm. Well, yes, we need energy, but what he's saying is the problem of creating electricity through non-renewable energy is only 25% of the problem. It's only producing 25% of the greenhouse gases, which makes our climate warmer. So if it's only addressing 25% of the problem, how much percent is left behind that is not being addressed?
75%?
Yes, there is a 75% problem that we are not properly taking care of. Because electricity, renewable energy, fossil fuels, it's just 25% of the problem. So he goes ahead and talks about the other 75%. Okay? So this is the part that he talks about. So now my do you see a white page in front of you?
Yeah,
It's constantly disappearing. It never does that to me. It only, I don't know what's so special about today that my page keeps disappearing. So if I'd like you to look at your own copy of the article, and Bill Gates goes on to mention 5 categories
yeah,
of things that produce the greenhouse effect, right?
yeah.
So can you name me another one besides electricity?
Agriculture.
Agriculture. Okay, good. So agriculture is part of the 75%. Bill Gates says there are 2 things that's wrong with our agriculture. What are those 2 things?
Um, um,
Agriculture has 2 issues. So he makes mention of what those 2 things are. One of them has something to do with trees, right?
yeah, removing trees that pull CO2 out of the air.
Mm-hmm.
When the trees are burnt, they release all their carbon back into the atmosphere.
Okay, good. So when you get rid of the trees, what do you call that action? The act of removing trees, depleting the forests.
Clearing land for crops.
Yeah, you're clearing the land. And what is the vocabulary word for that?
Deforestation.
Very good. You call it deforestation. So it's from the word forest, right? We have this word
Yeah,
forest. And when you deforest it, it means you're taking out the things that are inside the forest. So that's one problem related to agriculture, and it's contributing to the warming up of our climate. What is the other one under
agri-
under agriculture?
cattle.
Cattle. Yeah, what are cattle?
Cattle are huge stores of methane.
Methane, yes. What's methane?
I think um, also a kind of energy.
Mm-hmm, a kind of energy. So based on, we can, even if you don't know what it is, Maybe you can find a hint of what it might be based on how it's used in the paragraph, right? So methane is a kind of greenhouse gas.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever seen cattle in your whole life? Have you seen them in person?
Uh, no,
No, but you know what they are, right? Cattle.
no.
Okay, so cattle are cows.
Okay,
Cows, okay? So when there's a lot of them, the mother cows, the bulls, and the baby cows, all together they are cattle.
okay.
Yeah. Have you seen cows on a farm?
No.
No. D- Do you have an idea how cows might produce methane gas? Just make a
Oh,
wild guess.
no. Well, they, well, um, they actually, I think the gas comes from their inside body, from their butts.
Yeah, good, good. It comes from their poop, right?
Yeah,
It comes from their dung, the waste material.
yeah.
So Bill Gates says cows are a problem and deforestation is a problem, removing the trees. So can I ask you, do you think we need cows?
Well, not really.
Why not?
Um, well, we don't need cattle to continue our lives
Mm-hmm.
because
Because.
we also have other animals.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and what about crops? So it says here that we get rid of trees to make way for crops. Do you think we need crops?
Yeah,
Why? What?
because we need crops to survive. We eat crops every day for for the 3 meals.
Yes, crops are our food. Without crops, we wouldn't have the things that we have in the supermarket. Everything that we have that we put in our body are from crops. So we need crops, and the truth is we need cows. Cows are a source of our milk. It's also a source of beef or meat. And it's true we don't need to eat the meat, but cows are a member of our ecological environment. Do you know what is an ecological? Do you know what the ecological balance is?
Yeah,
What is it?
it's like they have the balance. So like it's we have the cows, so the grass won't grow wild.
Mm-hmm. It's something like that. It just means that every living species that we have on this planet has a purpose. Even mosquitoes or some insects or pests have a purpose on in our environment. And if you take away some of them, if you kill them, it's going to create an imbalance in our world, and it will create chaos in our in the world that we live in. So we need cows. They're part, it's like saying, that we don't need birds because they probably make too much poop, so we need to kill all the birds. So it's not true. It's going to create an ecological imbalance that is going to harm the human race in the long run. So if we need crops and if we need cows, how what would you do to solve the problem of the greenhouse gases that they produce?
Mm, maybe I think we should we should plant the crops in the place where only few trees live.
Okay.
I think we can also build the grow the crops on mountains and on the top of the water they always have waterfalls and the
Mm-hmm.
water would flow through all the places we grow the crops.
Okay, good. Very good. So we don't need to clear the trees. We just need to identify special places where we can grow crops. And it requires just a little bit of urban planning, of farm planning, or maybe developing technology so that we can grow it somewhere else without having to get rid of the trees, right? And what would you do about the cows?
um I think we should control the amount so there won't be a lot of the cows.
Control the amount of cows?
Yeah,
Okay. But you know, the cows still need to produce stuff that we need, like milk. So if we don't have enough cows, we're not going to have enough of the products that they produce for us.
I think then we should use like a kind of machine that will clear out that um that methane.
Okay, yes. So we need to develop technology. So anything is possible, you know, because if we can imagine it, we can actually come up with a technology for it. So methane is a kind of gas, and if the scientists work on it, they could probably convert methane into a source of clean energy. They just need to develop some kind of innovation for it. So what about manufacturing? What's the trouble with manufacturing?
Um, Making cement and steel requires lots of energy from fossil fuels, and it involves chemical reactions that release carbon as a byproduct.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So it's basically Bill Gates is saying anything that you own was created by a process that creates greenhouse gases. Like, for example, you have a picture behind you, right? Is that an oil painting? The picture behind you on the wall, is that an oil painting?
Yeah.
So the process by which the paints were created, the frame was created, or how the wood was harvested, it all those processes involve releasing carbon into the air. So even the things that we wear, like our shoes, our shirts, they come from factories that produce carbon into the air. So what if manufacturing is part of the 75% problem in global warming? What would you recommend to clean up manufacturing or to provide a solution in that area?
I think there shouldn't be too many factories in one area,
Mm-hmm.
so the gas won't be very dirty.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we should control the amount of smoke it it releases into the air every day.
Okay, yeah. So it would involve cleaning up or regulating the factories and identifying how closely they should be in one area. That's a good solution. Okay, what are the two other areas that he mentioned?
Transportation and buildings.
Okay, transportation and building. So it's basically he's saying all kinds of modern transportation produce carbon into the air, and that includes our cars, ships which release smoke into the air, especially the cargo ships, the ones that carry the goods, right, and the trucks. So the more we travel, the more carbon we release. if you were the president of, let's say you were the president of China, what would you do to solve the problem of carbon in transportation?
I think I would say like you cannot go you cannot leave your work more than 4 weeks a year.
Uh-huh. You cannot leave your work more than 4 weeks a year. What does it mean?
So you cannot have your holiday, and which means you won't go out to have vacation.
Oh, so you mean to limit holidays to 1 month in a year?
Yeah.
Okay. And how would that contribute to reducing our carbon footprint?
I think so we would go out by planes, by ships, by cars less.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
we can probably produce less greenhouse gas.
Right. Okay, yeah, that's a good suggestion. How about um how about finding replacements or a different kind of transportation that will not produce as much carbon into the air?
Like metro.
What is it?
Metro is like underground.
Oh, the underground. Yeah. So how would you describe that kind of solution?
Um, so I think they should give out a passport. So and and every day people write how much carbon dioxide they release to the air by doing all the things, and they write the number on it, and maybe if and according to the number of it, the government should decide to get more tax or less tax.
Mm, so you're making a connection between taxes and riding the underground, the
Yeah,
subway. Okay.
no, it's this morning, perhaps suppose you went to work by car,
Uh-huh.
and you should write, maybe you should add a number to the sheet,
Mm-hmm.
and if you go to work on foot, you don't have to add it on.
Oh, I see. All right. So it's basically you're going to tax people who use their cars more. Is
Yeah,
that it? And then you're going to give some exemptions for the people who use other means, like if they walk to work or they use their bicycles.
yeah,
It's like giving them an incentive to use other forms of transportation. Have you heard of this word before? Incentive?
yeah.
Incentive. So an incentive is like giving a reward for people who do things that are helpful to society. Okay?
Okay.
So it's like if you use your bicycle more or if you walk more, you don't have to pay as much tax as everyone else. Was that your idea?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, that's a good idea. So you call that an incentive. All right. So buildings has more to do with using too much air conditioning, heaters. Are you using a heater now in your house? Because
yeah,
I know it's cold in China now, right?
yeah.
Well, what is the temperature?
I think that's about to 10 or less than 10 degrees.
Less than 10 degrees. That's really cold. So the more heater you use during this time of the year, the more carbon you release into the air as well. So what do you think would be a possible solution for buildings producing carbon?
I think maybe limiting the amount of carbon they could use for 1 month.
How would you do that?
Uh, because we could, it's like we use carbon to make the heater and the air conditioner work right.
They
And
release the carbon into the air. Yeah, it's a byproduct.
we maybe we can list the amount, like if you release only a little bit of carbon into the air, you don't have to pay as much money for the electricity.
Okay, yeah. So it's a form of regulation as well. So you're going to limit their use by giving them an incentive of
Yeah,
they're going to pay less penalties if they curb the gas emissions that they release. But Bill Gates also gives you a suggestion here. Can you explain his suggestion? The, he said something here in this area. Could you explain this in your own words? This is part of his solution to resolving the building situation.
what's efficient windows?
More he's talking about creating more efficient windows and insulation. So if you have an efficient thing, efficiency or being efficient means it's something that works really well. Okay, it's functioning well. So if you have more efficient windows, if your house or your building has more windows that does the job well, what would you have? What is the effect?
Maybe in winter, your house will be warmer, and in summer your house will be cooler.
Okay, yes. So windows have more purpose in the summer. If they're really efficient, they're placed in strategic areas, they will make your house cooler without you having to use the air conditioning, right? And
Yeah,
insulation, have you heard of this word before?
no,
It's the ability to retain heat, to keep the heat inside a certain area. So if you want to make your house warm in the winter, you could probably build it into the walls, build the technology into your walls so that the cold can't come inside, right?
yeah,
And if your walls are working really well, there's kind of technology inside it, maybe it's thicker walls or whatever, then you wouldn't need to use a heater, which requires you to use more fossil fuels like coal, for example. Okay, do you
okay,
understand?
yeah,
Yeah, all right. So that is Bill Gates' solution for buildings. So I guess that is it. The only thing I want you to look at is this one. I want you to look at this bar graph and try to explain it in your own words. What is it trying to show us? It says here, if cattle were a country, they would rank third in greenhouse gas emissions. So can you try and explain what this graph is talking about?
um. I think this is the black ones are the number of are the amount of carbon dioxide that the countries make,
Mm-hmm.
and China, United States, and India. And the yellow one is it if if they count the amount of the carbon dioxide the cattle make,
Mm-hmm.
that would be 5.0. That's more than India and just a little bit less than United States.
Right. So the gases that cows emit is comparable, almost comparable to that being released by the United States, right?
Yeah.
That's why they say it's as big. It's a big problem. The methane from the cows is a big problem. Okay. All right, good. So, Yo-Yo, you speak very well, and I'm very happy to see that your comprehension skills are really good. You just need to build up your vocabulary a bit. So, we discussed a few new words today, like depletion and incentive. And if you, whenever you have a new word, whenever you encounter a new word, you could probably keep it in a small notebook, write
Yeah.
them down so that you remember them. And every time you discuss your idea, you can use your new vocabulary the next time so that you can come off, you can uh, describe your message in a clearer way,
Yeah.
which you are already doing a good job so far. You are 11 years old, right? Is that what
Yeah.
you told me? Okay. All right. So good job. So thank you very much for coming to class. You have been very attentive. You've been a good student tonight. And do you have any questions for me before we end?
No.
Okay, good. All right. So I'm very happy to meet you, and I hope to see you again next time. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Bye bye, Yo Yo. Good
Bye
night.
bye.
Bye bye.